Hi, this is Erica Marilyn. I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I'm very excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She owns a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester area. She and her team are fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today, Nicole. We are so excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. So today we're talking about something really interesting, I think. And I don't know if people can really appreciate this unless they are in the courtroom and they witness it and maybe are going through it. Um, and that is when you are up and the judge is asking you questions, uh, it's really tough because she is going from one to the other. She's firing the questions at you in rapid succession, and you have to be able to make your point. I mean, is this true? I mean, this is what it looked like to me in a recent situation. But is it true? Like all the time, like the judge is just like, okay, go. And she's like, asks you 10 questions in a row.
I don't think it's that extreme, but I think it probably feels that extreme to everybody that's there. The reality is, yes, we get bombarded with questions, and sometimes we're just sitting there going, "Oh, look at you! We know you're going to get slammed because it's directed at the other party." And sometimes we know it's directed at us, and sometimes it's equal. So it really depends on the case and the facts. And you as an attorney needs to be aware of that and need to be prepared for it. I mean, that's the hardest thing is when you go in there and if you get tongue tied, you're kind of a fish out of water. You don't really know what to do, and it creates a lot of problems. And the judge gets very hostile very quickly.
I mean, I think like we were talking about recently, like, oh, what happens if the attorney fires you? What happens if you fire your attorney? I think the best thing is to have a good pick from the beginning and stay with that attorney because so much happens during the case and even like throughout the years you're going back, and if that attorney is good, they're going to remember every in and out of the case. And some of it's like a lot of drama, but they know the history of it. And I know that I had an attorney have to step in one time, and that day in court went terrible because they didn't know my entire case. If they were a good attorney, but they just didn't know. And so like, I really lost some footing in that particular day in court, which, you have to regain later if you can get back to have your fantastic attorney, which is you. Would you make that suggestion to people? I mean, we talked about firing the attorneys or they fire you, but keep that relationship going if it's good because it behooves you later. Is that right?
It absolutely does. I mean, it's even if you're coming in as a second attorney or third attorney or whatever, sometimes things happen. Sometimes people do retire. Sometimes it's just, you lose an associate and you're taking over the case now. So things of that nature are going to happen. That's inevitable. And so if you can't avoid it, absolutely. It's always difficult, at least from my perspective. I think the most difficult thing is usually going, okay, if you have kids that are Jake, Jason, Jared, I'm going, okay, which one's what? Because they're all boys and they all have the first last, same last letter of the name. And I'm like, I don't even know. What are you talking about? Like, I'll just go first, second, and third kid at that point. Um, because that makes it a lot easier for me that I can say, oh, the middle child had this issue, rather than me trying to figure it out. Because when we are doing that rapid fire, that's the stuff that will get an attorney tongue tied. Unless we're talking about one specific child and you're rambling between all of them, that's the thing that kind of makes me crazy. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that when I'm filling in for somebody else, yeah, I know the case, but I haven't read every single email. I haven't read every single note. I haven't read the entire file back and forth. I haven't been in that other attorney's brain where you told them, but the attorney didn't take the notes down. So those are the things that are going to be missing when you do have that situation and you are taking over for whatever reason. So you always have a little bit of, oh my God, and a little bit of nervousness even from the attorney's perspective because we want to do a really good job, but we know that we don't know everything, where if we're on it from the beginning, we have a wealth of knowledge. And again, even if something's not written on the paper, I'm going to be able to say, well, this is what happened with Sally on this day. And I might look and you go, what month was that? But that's about all I'm going to say. Otherwise, I'm going to be able to tell the entire story.
And I mean, and that's so true. The other thing, because I'm very excited about you. Like, I don't usually get to talk about what you've done for me personally. And we went to court recently, and it was very interesting because the other side had their story. And their story was really different than what I feel was really, really happening. And it felt like they were trying to make it seem like I was rich and going on all these vacations and things when I had been using a payout that I got, or, and I had done some home renovations. And so I had a HELOC, but that wasn't like mystery money coming in. There were loans to get a new business started. And they were trying to say that I was making $200,000 a year when I had just started a brand new business. So it was it was crazy because you had to go in there knowing that they were just going to say all of this stuff, and they kept saying, "Where's this mystery money? How did she get?" And they had all the documents proving that I had gotten a loan, yet they were still saying all of this stuff and trying to make it sound like I was shady and like I had some kind of underground dog grooming business going on. And so I I was really nervous because that was a lot to unpack and try to disprove. And you don't get a lot of time when you're up there. I mean, what? And you just got up there, and the judge started asking questions, and they started saying their story, which was totally like not looking at the truth. And you, when it was your turn, were able to rapid fire make the bullet points and just unravel everything that they were doing and say what needed to be said to make the right points, and say, look, there's a loan. They're saying that we didn't give them the documents. They gave us 2 weeks, but we gave it to them anyway. I mean, it was unbelievable the amount of information that you got in 5 minutes with the judge. And like, I know I'm doing most of the talking in this interview. I'm so sorry. But like, dude, it's just amazing. How do you do it?
Well, I think you got to start with the premise of exactly that. I've got less than 5 minutes to get my point across. What are the highlights of any case that I'm going in front of the judge on? What are the things that I know that they're going to bring up, especially when I'm the defendant? What are the things that I need to bring up that I'm going to disprove for them if I'm the plaintiff? And how quickly can I say that? So we get really talkative really fast. And you're very excited today, but I can get very excited when I'm in the courtroom because I have to make sure I have to go do this really, really fast. And so, judge, you have to, and so you start speeding up your sentences and you start talking because I know I'm under that rapid fire. I know that I'm doing that for a reason because I know at some point the judge is, looking down and going, I'm already making a decision. Why are you talking, counsel? I don't, so we know that we have to guide that judge and get their attention first and foremost. And we need to keep that attention for that entire time because once the head goes down, we can kind of gauge there going, they're siding with us or they're doing something, they're looking at child support guidelines, they're looking up the court decisions, they're doing other things. So we're also looking at what they're doing and getting feedback going, my window is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So you really got to have a game plan. You really got to know what you want to say and really be poignant on the facts and or the law, depending on which one supports you more, and how you can convey that information quickly to the judge in such a way that it disproves their theory and proves our theory, and more importantly, gets our point across that maybe everything they're saying is not accurate.
I, and that is so true. And the other thing that you did was they started bringing up things. Fuck. They started bringing up things that I didn't realize they were going to try to say. I know that they had looked for my ad for when I was looking for groomers and what I would pay at the time. Now it was 6 months ago and I freshly had my business loan and we were out of the startup income now. So I'm doing the grooming. And they were like, "Well, obviously if she was going to pay somebody 6 months ago this amount of money, she's paying herself that." And it was like just there were some curves that I didn't see coming. And you were able to, and they were like, she had 3 groomers and now she's doing it. She said she was gonna close this down and she's still doing. I mean, I don't know what any of that had to do with anything. Like, the numbers were the numbers. We have taxes, we have bank accounts. You see the cash flow. But you were able to say, listen, she has a business and like anyone else there is turnover and there are things that happen and her employee actually left and took half of her clients with her unexpectedly and then she had to start over again just in January. And it was just, I mean, you were able to like take what they said, know the situation, and just like come back with this, like, we never even talked about that. And I just thought, I mean, that is so amazing. I mean, how often do you have to come up with things on the fly like that? I mean, how easy is it? Because I mean, I know you know the whole story. It's just, it's so little time. I'm just saying, it is so little time that you have. And I just couldn't believe what you were able to do.
Well, I think, some part of that is being a business owner. We know, guess what? If an employee works, we're working twice the amount of time. Are we getting paid for it? Are you joking? Of course not. I mean, the reality is 99% of business owners are putting it back in the business. Now, yes, in some cases that would actually be income. In other cases, it's great. Now I need to do twice the amount of work because I need to I need to send out ads. I need to go find those people. So it depends on the business and what you can actually do with it. So I think a little bit of business ownership helps in that situation. But again, just real life experience. Been doing this for over 2 decades. Have seen these situations come up. So kind of know what the judge is thinking, what the judge is saying. Again, I can read between the lines when I'm reading a pretrial memo with counsel's notes and what they're going to say. I've also had a conference with them most likely before we go into the courtroom. So again, I know what they're going to point out. So it might be a little bit of rapid fire, but it's also a little bit of intuition and knowing where they're going to go based off of what they're articulating to me. So I've already got in the back of my mind a rebuttal.
I mean, and that's amazing. And that's why you need somebody that does have experience in law, has real life experience, and realize that you have somebody that is in court every day, in family court every day. They are learning from their own experiences. But I think we've talked about this in the past. You're also learning from all the other cases that are going on while you're waiting. I mean, those things are interesting. You could write a book about what you see in court on any given day. It's all incredible. But you're taking that and you're able to use that to your client's advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's again that good listening skill because a lot of times, whether I'm listening to a brand new case that I was just in the other day and I said, "Oh my God, who is this attorney? I never want to go against them. Like they're out of their mind." And I asked opposing counsel when she came and sat down, like, "Who is this? I don't want any part of it." And she gave me the lowdown on it. But we have that. So again, I'm looking at that going, if I have that attorney on an opposing side, I know not to trust anything that they say. I know that they're unfortunately one of those people that gives us a bad name. So you're going to have those. You're going to also have attorneys that are going to be more than forthcoming to share everything with you, kind of like pro se litigants sometimes that just, I just keep picking their brain. I just keep asking them questions that they keep giving me answers and I'm just feeding it all in so that I can reiterate the good points to the judge that I know that they're already going to bring up the bad points. But I've already got a solution. So again, it's a little bit of that of just knowing how to manipulate the conversation or get the information that you need from the conversation so that you can best present it to the judge.
I mean, and that's really good. And I'll say too that having somebody that can kind of be like put everything in a nutshell for you after, because there's negotiating that goes on. And we ended up just kind of calling a stalemate at this point because we've been in court for 2 years and it just did not seem like that judge was going to give us what we wanted. And we were going to keep getting the same judge. And whether it was right or not, it was like, it's going to cost X amount of time, X amount of dollars to keep on going. And we're probably going to get this small amount more. And it's some having somebody actually put that in perspective that you trust, that you've been working with for years, it is highly valuable. And what's really interesting is that the other side was on their third attorney during the whole process, and there's another person involved now that as a decision maker. So when we were going to be reasonable, they were like, no, and we want $5 million more. No, it wasn't $5 million more. But it was like a crazy amount that had nothing to do with the issue that we were even talking about. And they were just going to keep going. And it was like, okay. And to have an attorney just be like, all right, I'll go back and tell them that, and that's fine. And then later that day, they came to their senses. But because honestly, I wouldn't have cared if we had gone on or not. But I don't want to put anyone through any extra work and time, and it's exhausting putting those financial statements together every few months. And I mean, if it's just not going to get much of a result, honestly, like having somebody that really knows, hey, this worth it or not, that's so important. You might be so passionate, and like I think the other side was, or their new party that was involved in it was very passionate about winning, uh and don't care, we could do this for 5 more years and spend $5 million to save $5,000. Like, but people do that. I mean, how often do you think it is when you're like, you have the good relationship with your client? I mean, do they usually listen to you, like when you have a reasonable discussion with them on, hey, let's end this now or not?
I do a cost analysis on pretty much every case at some point. Sometimes it's in the beginning, sometimes it's at pre-trial, sometimes it's the day of trial. But I try to have that conversation with my clients multiple times because, great, again, you could be right and you could get this extra money, but you're going to pay me. So, do you want that money to go to me, which I'm happy to take, or do you want it to go to your child's college education or the extracurricular activity that you can't really afford, but now with this extra money of saving, you can afford it? So, things of that nature, I try to put in those perspectives because I think that's obviously going to be most beneficial to my clients. If I just say, "Hey, look, let's do this," and not back it up, again, clients will tell me out of principle and I'll go, great, let's talk about principle. Let's talk about how much principle is going to cost. And feel free to watch that video because believe me, that's an eye opener for a lot of people. And they'll tell me that. But principle doesn't help at the end of the day because, again, we have to run that cost analysis. How much are you spending on me versus how much money you're going to make? And how the other part of that is how happy or miserable are you going to be if this case is either settled or you're drudging it through for another year or two. I mean, that takes its toll. So yeah, sometimes the money is just that important, don't get me wrong, but in other cases you really want to fight for that extra $50 a week for the next 2 years that you may or may not get. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be your best friend during that time period. So, you have that factor. And oh, by the way, I'm also going to be that thorn in your side because I'm going to keep asking you for documents and my office is going to keep harassing you for these things. And so, again, there's a little bit of, I like you, Nicole, but I don't want to see you for a while. And I get that. And I kind of feel the same way because, again, my whole goal is to get you the best that I can in that situation. So, again, cost analysis, I'm going to do it with you multiple times. Will you take my advice? Eventually, people take it. Sometimes, again, they only take it at trial, in which case I made a lot of money and they really didn't get the benefit for my advice.
And I mean, that's really unfortunately, it's up to them. Uh, it- sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes you swing and you miss. I mean, it's really all a gamble because there's so many things that could happen that you don't know about, and it's such a long process, and that's part of the problem. It's just things can pop out at you. And I don't think people realize you like I got divorced 5 years ago. And I'm over it. I am so over it. But I'm getting married soon again. Crazy me. But like when I went to court the other day, I still felt sick to my stomach. And like I really didn't care. Like I thought I didn't, but somehow somewhere in the back of my mind I must have really been stressed out by it because it I was like I remember I looked at you and I'm like, "God, I really feel like I'm gonna throw up. I don't know what's like what is wrong because I don't care." But it it just weighs on you. I mean, there was nothing big that was gonna happen either way. Like it's a little bit of money here or there. But it's like, ugh, the lead up to it and the documents, like you said, people get tired and it's good to have somebody that can do that cost benefit analysis for you because when you're not in that business, you don't really know. You don't know what each of these complaints is going to cost you emotionally, physically, monetarily, time wise. It's you need someone to tell you. So I'm telling you that if you have a problem, and you need someone to take you through family court for any reason, you have to call Nicole and her team. They're incredible and they do care. And they've got great strategies and she listens. She listens and she brings this stuff up.
I think it's really, again, I think, people do get overwhelmed. People do, I think to a certain degree, stop listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Maybe it's because they're emotional and they can't focus on what I'm saying. Sometimes it's you don't know what you're talking about. Then when the judge says the exact same thing, all of a sudden it's magic. Um, but sometimes it's a little of that. But I think it's just a little bit of taking what everyone is telling you, whether it be the judge and or your attorney, take it to heart, listen to it, because the reality is you're going to have that judge at trial. That's going to be your judge making the determination. And if the judge for whatever reason doesn't like you, I've got an uphill battle. That's there's no way around it. I do. And it's nothing that you did wrong, and maybe you're a great person, but the reality is the judge does not like you for whatever reason. The judge has decided that. And so again, you have to understand that I'm coming from a point of not only as your counselor, but as somebody who really appreciates you as a client and as a person, that I'm telling you this because I need you to hear it, because it's what's best for you. It's not because I'm going to make money off of you. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with you really need to listen to me. And if I don't know that and I don't see that from the judge, then obviously you won't get that perspective. But listen to us when I say, I know this judge. And there are times that we have a brand new judge sitting on the bench. I go, I have no idea what the judge is going to do. I've only met them once. I'll tell you that too. But I'll also tell you after that hearing, what I think the judge is going to do based on their reactions and based on their questions to us.
And honestly, I mean, that worked in our advantage in this case because the judge liked us in the beginning, originally, and then for some reason, the smoke and mirrors worked, even though we were able to dispel a lot of those myths. It had already been kind of made up in her mind. Who knows what was going on for her? I mean, but that's what happened, and you were very realistic, which, having someone be realistic with you that you trust is just priceless, in my opinion. Thank God for you, Nicole. You're fantastic. Anyone would be lucky to have you defending them in court. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this valuable knowledge every week.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you for listening.